So it was a couple weeks ago. We got some pretty nasty snowstorms down here, and it was probably 4 to 6 inches of wet, heavy snow, and then it transitioned to sleet and eventually to rain. And when I was on my way home after I got done plowing, I noticed that my headlights were pointed at the ground. So I knew there were some rusty spots on the plow, and found out that they definitely gave up and kind of fatigued and bent. So as you can see here, this was some wet, sloppy snow. I'm not really pushing the truck hard, but anyways, things bent and now it's time to fix it. So as you can see here, this is a Western UltraMount plow, and the spears is what I'm calling them, are known to hold water and eventually rot. And that's exactly what happened here. These rotted out and eventually just rotted so much that the material got thin and started to fatigue and crack and then bend. Being a snowplow, this thing lives in the salt, so everything gets rusty. If you use a torch on the nylon lock nut, you're going to burn out the nylon and then it's no longer a lock nut. What I found that can help before you get to that point, take an air hammer with a little flat attachment like I have here and just hammer on that thing for a couple seconds on a couple different sides, and it really helps break all the rust free inside. And I was able to get this nut off and reuse the bolt. Unfortunately, there was a couple of these carriage bolts that held part of this bracket in place that I just could not get to budge. It was just rounding out the square head. So plasma cutter for the win. The bolts can't be tight if the bolts are liquid. Got the brackets off that kind of hook on and hold the plow on. A lot more room to get in there and work on everything, be able to cut it off and weld. Right here, I'm just checking to see what the original angle was. It was somewhere around 7 to 10 degrees is what I ballparked, and that's what I ultimately ended up going for. So making a 80-degree angle between the mount and the upright A-frame of the plow. Apparently, it takes 3 hands to use the tape measure, mark a piece of steel, and hold the camera at the same time. But here, I only got 2 hands, so you get to watch me struggle with the simple task of marking a piece of steel. But got this piece of tube marked. I believe it was 12 or 13 inches or so. Got it up in the bandsaw and got it cut into length here. And the plan for getting it put on was I extended out 2.5, 3 inches past that little curve in the frame there. And then that's going to provide some additional kind of surface area for a weld, so it's not just a butt weld. And then I drew out the pipe to notch out the top of the pipe so it sits flush, and then have that C-section reach back to that other part that we have here, and then ultimately the angle on the end of it that's going to match up with the original spears. After I got the first tube cut out, did a little quick test fit just to make sure I was on the right track. So that notch out made it past the end, which is good. And now you can kind of see the idea, what I was talking about, now that I got a piece cut out. So with the first piece cut out, it's time to make a second piece. And just like that, we got 2 pieces made up, and comes the point of no return. This Everlast plasma cutter is probably one of the best tools in the shop. So once again, got that fired up and cutting off these old spears here. Old pieces are off, and you can see just how rotted they are. Also cut the pieces off this cross member, and that big 7-inch angle grinder is also worth every single penny. Got the new pieces prepped and ready to put on, tacked up in place. Yeah, there's a huge gap there, but it's a MIG welder. You can fill it. It's going to be fine. Just double checking my angles here. Originally I was shooting for around 7-10 degrees, somewhere like that, and I ended up with just over 8 degrees, but both spears are pretty much dead on, and that's what counts because that's what's going to keep the plow level. Everything's fully burned in place. Everything came out pretty good. Didn't have any problems welding. Got into nice clean metal, which was nice. Just shaking up a can of self-etching primer here. Going to give it a little redneck powder coat, which is just what I call it when painting over a piece of hot metal you just welded. Additionally, I put a little gusset piece in the end of the tube right where that angle started, just to give a little bit more support to it. But that's pretty much it for this. I get to put the brackets back on, and then it's time to test fit the plow. Got all the brackets put back on. I do have to get some new hardware for those carriage bolts that I got cut off, but I just put some 1/2-inch bolts in there for the time being just to get the plow out of the garage. I can say that I can't remember the last time that it was this easy to hook up the plow. I've always had to fight with it. Even right now I'm on uneven ground because there's about 4 inches of ice in front of the garage, and obviously the plow was in the garage. But it was nice to get this project done. It really didn't take that long, and now it's probably not going to snow for the rest of the year, but if it does, we're going to be all set. and I won't have to worry about those bending probably for the life that I'm going to have this truck and plow. And it was good to get this project knocked off the list. So that's going to be a wrap for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have an UltraMount plow, keep an eye out for those rusty spots on this. But if you do need to fix it, it's not too big of a deal. So we'll see you on the next one.